Okay, we're back talking about antecedents needing to be clear, making sure we have clear antecedents for the pronouns that we use. So the second issue that comes up on our handout says, don't use a pronoun to refer to a noun that is not expressed but is merely implied. So if we imply something, we don't say it directly, we just suggest it. So we want to make sure that the antecedent is not just implied, but it's actually expressed. So we say there's a police station near the church, and we called them when we saw the broken window in the basement. So who is them? Whom did we call, right? So we can't just say them. We can't, it seems clear that we mean the police, right? But we don't state it. We just imply it. We just suggest it. So we don't want to do that. We want to be very clear about who it is we're calling. So say there's a police station near the church, and we called the police when we saw the broken windows in the basement. If it sounds too repetitive, find another way to write it. Say there is a police station near the church, and we called the officers when we saw the broken windows in the basement. Any noun that we want. Number 7, after hearing the lecture on underwater experimentation, Mr. X had a great admiration for them. Them. There's a pronoun. We don't have a clear statement of what the antecedent is. So say who it is. After hearing the lecture on underwater experimentation, Mr. X had a great admiration for the lecturer, or for the speakers, or for the presenters, whoever it is. All right? All right, a third issue that comes up on the back of our handout. This is really important. We want to make sure that the antecedent is clear. Sometimes there are two possible antecedents, and we need to make our sentence clear enough so that we know which noun is the antecedent for a given pronoun. So look at number 9. The orange trees were covered with cloths and fanned by the warmth of heaters, but they were blown about by the wind. So we have the pronoun they, but there are several antecedents, possible antecedents. What is it that was blown about by the wind? The trees, or the cloths that were covering the trees, or even somehow the heaters being blown about by the wind? So we have to be clear which of those is the antecedent. Now when we do this, sometimes we end up writing a sort of repetitive sentence, but if we have to choose between an unclear antecedent and slightly repetitive sentence, then we choose repetition over having an unclear antecedent. I would say something like, the orange trees were covered with cloths and fanned by the warmth of the heaters, but the cloths were blown about by the wind. Okay? Or, but the trees were blown about by the wind. Whatever it is, whatever my intention is about what the antecedent is for that they. Number 10, if Hitler had behaved differently with Stalin, things might have gone better for him. So who's him? Is it Stalin or is it Hitler? So we have to be clear. It's going to sound a little repetitive, but if we want to leave the sentence this way instead of rewriting it somehow, we'd have to say, if Hitler had behaved differently with Stalin, things might have gone better for Hitler, or things might have gone better for Stalin, whatever we mean. Okay? Or rewrite it, say, if Hitler had behaved differently with Stalin, things might have gone better for the leader of Germany, the German leader, or the Russian leader. Do it that way. All right. One more. Let's see. Look at number 17. When Bonnie visited her mother, she was very angry. So we have the pronoun she. Who is angry, Bonnie or her mother? So we'd have to say, when Bonnie visited her mother, Bonnie was very angry. Or when Bonnie visited her mother was very angry. So we sacrifice a little by sounding kind of repetitive, but it's better to be repetitive than to have an unclear antecedent. And then the last issue that comes up, it says avoid an antecedent that is remote from the pronoun. So if the antecedent gets too far away from the pronoun, we may have a hard time telling what the antecedent is, even though it's there. So 18, the delegates arrived in twos and threes for the emergency session at the UN. Interested spectators were also streaming in. They stopped only to pose for the photographers at the entrance. Who stopped? Was it the delegates or was it the spectators? So we have to be clear. Say, the delegates arrived in twos and threes for the emergency session at the UN. Interested spectators were also streaming in. The delegates stopped only to pose for the photographers at the entrance. Notice that the they gets pretty far away from the antecedent. And even though the antecedent is there, we may not realize what it was there. Plus, we could have two possible antecedents here, either the delegates or the spectators. Okay? All right. There are some others that we can try out here. If you have questions as you try the ones we didn't cover, make sure to let me know during the class session on Zoom, during the regularly scheduled class time, or you can reach me through email or through chat in Canvas with questions. All right? All right. Thanks a lot. See ya.